Kia ora, Kiwi Codger here, and welcome to episode 79, The Elizabeth Affair, Part 3, Takapuneke. We ended Part 2 with some droning of Takapuneke and the Elizabeth coming to anchor a few hundred metres off its beach. It's mid-afternoon, Tuesday the 2nd of November 1830. All Ngāti Toa are below deck. They now talk in muted voices, their muskets kept within reach. They hear the running of the anchors and the ship coming up tight. If their plan has somehow reached Ngāi Tahu, then they can expect action at any moment. As time passes, those below deck relax. Cal calls down that things look normal. There is some activity on the shore, but pretty much what he'd expect. Those at Takapuneke are familiar with visiting ships. The main pa at Kaiapoi has no natural harbour, so ships come to the calm waters of Akaroa Harbour. The Elizabeth can expect a visit from those on shore soon. It'll be an exploratory visit to find out the purpose of their visit. Strangely, no one from the shore comes. Stuart and Carl decide to lower the skiff, and with the sunset an hour away, row to shore. Children and the curious welcome them on shore. They are escorted to a minor chief, a nephew of Te Mai Haranui, Piri. They present him with a cutlass, then sit down to discuss the purpose of their visit, which is flax fibre. Piri informs them that Te Mai Haranui is the only one to negotiate, but he's at Waiwera, Lake Forsyth, 45 kilometres away by canoe, inspecting the flax operation there, and is not expected back for a number of days. When Cal interprets for Stuart, his heart sinks. Stuart says they have many muskets and will give the best trade for any flax fibre. He slowly insists that the ship cannot spend much time at Akaroa, and for Piri to send a message to Te Mai Haranui to return to negotiate a very advantageous deal. It's agreed, and a canoe will go in the morning. They return to the ship at dusk and meet with Te Hiko and Te Rao Paraha and explain the situation. The soonest they can expect Te Mai Haranui's return is Thursday evening, but more likely Friday sometime. There is no hint of suspicion, and the villagers are accommodating. Ngāti Toa will have to spend the next 2 to 3 days bottled up below deck. Fortunately, the weather is settled, and spring temperatures are quite manageable below decks. Word spreads around the ship. The expectation of imminent action now dissipating. Some giggling has to be shushed. Everyone eats and prepares for sleep. The sun sinks below the western ranges, and soon there is just the starlight. The cooking fires from the Kaianga outline shapes of villagers enjoying their evening. The deck lights on the Elizabeth are lit. Although everything is quiet and peaceful, Stuart posts a fully armed watch throughout the night. There is too much treachery in these isles to let your guard down. Te Hiko and Te Rao Paraha come out on deck. They wear European clothes given them by Stuart. They observe the fires and silhouettes of the Kaianga and deduce its size. On the opposite side of the harbour there are also twinkling lights. These are the fires from the other Kaianga at Wainui. They retire to their cabin on the second deck. In the lantern's warm glow, they discuss attack plans. It is Wednesday morning, the 3rd of November. All awake. Shifts switch out, the stench below taken on deck and emptied overboard. The day goes slowly. In the afternoon, the alarm is heard. Everyone knows a canoe is approaching. All go quiet. Cal rushes to the main deck. A canoe with 4 men pull alongside. No ladder is lowered to them. Cal asks their business. They have their day's fishing to sell. The sound of the canoe banging against the hull heard by all. The fish are bought for 5 plugs of tobacco. The fish winched aboard and the canoes depart. The all clear given a minute later. The cook is happy to see the fish. Wednesday evening, in the half-light, Tehiko and Te Rauparaha stare at Takapuneke, seeing the Kaianga in more detail. Some Ngāti Toa emerge upon deck. They lie on the deck enjoying the fresh air before being ordered back down below. It's Thursday, the 4th of November. The routine of confinement now becoming exhausting. Numerous canoes visit the ship trying to sell fish, pork and game. Various deals are struck, but no one is allowed on board. The frequent sounding of alarm, then all clear, wearing on everyone's nerves. On Friday, the 5th of November, Guy Fawkes Day, Stuart and Cal have the whale boat lowered and the crew row them to the next bay for some hunting. Mid-morning, the hunting is finished. Carl and Stuart each have a brace of kiwi and a dozen wood pigeons, kararu. On rowing back to the Elizabeth, they are hailed by a canoe containing 4 warriors, an older chief, and a young girl. They slow and allow the canoe to pull alongside. It is to my Haranui, his daughter, and his men. Everyone is pleased to see each other. Cal engages him in te reo and invites him to join them in the whaleboat and continue with them out to the Elizabeth. They can have business discussions and lunch. Te Mai Haranui is delighted and transfers to the whaleboat and brings his daughter. Te Mai Haranui instructs the rest in the canoe to continue on to Takapuneke. The first mate, Clemenson, is on the deck of the Elizabeth observing this transfer. He makes the correct assumption that this is Te Mai Haranui. The deference shown by others and the feathers denote someone of high rank. He quickly organises the clearing of Ngāti Toa from the first deck aft section. They move rapidly into the midsection, then close the doors behind them. There is now a clear path from above deck through the aft section and into the captain's quarters. The whaleboat pulls alongside. Clemenson checks everything is ready before lowering the ladder. Te Mai Haranui climbs up first, followed by his 11-year-old daughter, Naromita. Cal and Stuart right behind. Cal invites Te Mai Haranui to follow Clemenson to the captain's quarters. Everyone follows. Cal talking all the time to Te Mai Haranui. It's idle conversation to help ease the tension he and others feel. They all enter the captain's quarters. Stuart sits behind his desk. He indicates the 2 chairs for Te Mai Haranui and Carl. Clemenson stands between the desk and Stuart's weapons on the wall. Naromita sits by the window, looking out to Wainui. Cal does the introductions and invites Te Mai Haranui to partake in a drink before starting negotiations. He accepts. Cal grabs the bottle and 3 mugs and begins pouring whiskey. The cabin door opens and all stop to look. The tall figure if Te Hiko enters the room with the diminutive Te Rao Paraha behind, their visage menacing. But Te Mai Haranui is bewildered by this interruption until Te Hiko says, "I am Te Hiko, son of Te Pehi Kupe." Whilst this information is being processed by Te Mai Haranui, Te Hiko lunges at him, grabs him in a headlock, thrusts his face at the others and pulls back his upper lip as far back as it'll go and says, "These are the lips that ate my father." Naromita screams. Te Hiko slams Te Mai Haranui's head into the desk, then punches Naromita, knocking her out. Te Mai Haranui and his daughter lie senseless on the cabin floor. The sudden violence and the sudden silence leaves the Pakeha stunned. The heavy breathing of Te Hiko, the only sound. In the bewilderment, Clemenson takes charge and gets Te Hiko to help him drag the unconscious Te Mai Haranui. Cal takes Naromita. The limp bodies are taken to the forecabin, past the delighted Ngāti Toa warriors. Stripped and dumped, the door locked. Clemenson fetches leg irons and summons 2 crew to help. On entering the forecabin, Te Mai Haranui stirs as the leg irons are fastened on. There is no struggle. There is only resignation. He has no doubt as to his future. From the light coming through the ceiling hatch, he sees his daughter. She is breathing. He lets out a sigh of relief. Meanwhile, in their cabin, Te Hiko and Te Rao Paraha decide that the attack on Takapuneke will occur tonight. They guess the moonrise to be around midnight. They will leave the Elizabeth once the moon rises over the eastern ranges and provides light. Their conversation stops when they hear the alarm again. They exit their cabin to hear Cal warning of 2 canoes with 8 people approaching. They pull alongside. They wish to join with Te Mai Haranui. Carl secures their canoes, lowers the ladder, and welcomes them on board. Te Mai Haranui's wife, Te Whai, is there. The rest, men of rank, including Paddy. Cal directs them down to the first deck. When the last is down, Ngāti Toa pour into the area and easily subdue the stunned Ngāi Tahu. They are beaten, stripped, then locked in the tiller room aft. Te Whai is taken to the forecabin, stripped and thrown in with her husband and daughter. The 3 cling to each other, sobbing deeply. There's mutterings amongst the crew of the Elizabeth that they should sail now, but Stuart knows that's not an option. 120 well-armed Ngāti Toa would not permit it. They have not spent 3 hard days below deck to allow their pent-up desire for utu to be denied. Te Hiko, Te Rao Paraha and Stuart discuss the transporting of the 120 Ngāti Toa warriors to shore. 4 seamen, under the command of Stuart, will row the whaleboat and tow the skiff and 2 Ngāi Tahu canoes into shore. It will take 2 trips to get all the warriors on shore. The first to the northern end of the beach, the second to the southern end. The 2 groups of Ngāti Toa warriors will then attempt to encircle the Kaianga, or, if detected, to rush in. Tomahawks, the silent killers to be used until muskets become necessary. As darkness settles in, Ngāti Toa eat and prepare themselves for the attack. Muskets have been loaded, but no powder put in the pan. That will be done on reaching shore. Those at Takapuneke suspect nothing. Virtually all their chiefs now prisoners on the Elizabeth. Midnight comes and goes. The glow from the rising moon now obvious. The Ngāti Toa warriors emerge on deck and the loading begins. In the forecabin, Te Mai Haranui is awakened by Te Whai, her eyes looking up to the deck above. There is a sound of many feet, of canoes bumping against the hull, Ngāti Toa boarding, and the muffled murmur of commands. They look into each other's eyes helpless, like their people, their friends and kin. The treachery of this day overwhelms them. The first group are ready. The seamen strain on their oars. All boats are packed and ride low in the water. The cycle is repeated. This cargo is dropped at the southern end of the beach. In the growing moonlight, they signal the other for the encirclement. They will make their way up the sides of the village and close it off. If detected, they will attack inwards. From the Elizabeth, some of the crew watch, anticipate a night worthy of Guy Fawkes. All is silence. Soon dogs start barking. There is the occasional holler. With the barking increasing, Ngāti Toa start closing in on the nearest forays, tomahawks drawn. Soon screams shatter the darkness. The screams seem to be coming from everywhere. Now the sound of musket fire rocks the night. Forays are set on light to flush families out. There is no mercy, no organised resistance. The stunned villagers are unaware who is attacking. Is this some treacherous reigniting of the feud with southern Ngāi Tahu? But it's the accents of the attackers that make it clear. They are outsiders. With no leaders, there is little resistance. Many escape into the bush. Many are killed. Many captured. Men, women, and children suffer the same fate. Within 20 minutes, the initial attack is over. Carrying torches, all forays are examined for booty and the hidden. One by one, the remaining forays are set alight. The only sound now, the crackling of burning forays, the sporadic musket shot, the occasional scream. Some Ngāti Toa pursue those escaping, but are ambushed, one killed, several wounded. They retreat. The darkness and familiar bush now favours the escapees. On the Elizabeth, only those on watch now remain on deck. The panicked silhouettes of people running through hell etched on many as they lay in their hammocks. A number of native canoes full of Ngāti Toa now pass the Elizabeth, some crew holding severed heads up by their hair, blood running down their arms. They are heading for the Kaianga of Wainui on the opposite side of the harbour. Their work of death not finished yet. In the pre-dawn glow, the morning watch see the skiff and whaleboat returning with the oarsmen Te Rauparaha and Stewart. After breakfast, Stewart, Carl, Te Rauparaha, Te Hiko, and 6 of the crew, all heavily armed, row back to Takapuneke. Bodies of men, women and children greet them on the beach. More are being dragged down for butchering and washing. A complement of Ngāti Toa warriors welcome them to this macabre scene. Te Rauparaha and Te Hiko remain and supervise the human hangi. The captured now forced to prepare the ovens for their friends and kin. The Pākehā return to their ship. In the afternoon, the whaleboat, under the command of Cal, goes to the opposite side of the harbour, to Wainui. There the scene is the same, the preparation of human flesh well underway. On the return of the whaleboat, the Elizabeth is made ready for sail. They will pull anchors around 2 a.m. when the three-quarter moon rises above the eastern ranges. As the sun sets, canoes shuttle Ngāti Toa and captives back to the Elizabeth from both sides of the harbour. Baskets of dressed human flesh, heads and limbs are passed up. Most are covered with mats to help with the sensibilities of the Europeans. As the last warriors board, the canoes are cast adrift. They retire below to store their booty and to prepare for sailing. The captives are stripped and placed in the tiller room with their comrades. A basket of cooked flesh thrown in after them. The Ngāti Toa crack up laughing. The second deck, midsection, is where the booty is stored and sampled. The Pākehā give this a wide berth. At 2 a.m, Sunday, the 7th of October, with the moon well up, the anchors are winched up and secured. The breeze is mild. Stewards had the 8 cannons and 2 swivel guns loaded with powder only. As the sails begin to fill in the evening breeze, each of the guns is fired in turn under Stewart's command. Each shot echoes across the harbour. Groups of those who fled into the bush look out to the harbour at the flash of the guns, mystified as to what it means. In the moonlight they see the ship slowly heading south. In the last 24 hours, their world has been destroyed. The dealers in death have come and are now departing. Their food supplies destroyed, their crops burnt, their homes now ashes. The future is now a place of dread. Well, folks, that brings us to the end of part 3. The monument they've built at Takapuneke that we saw in the droning footage of part 2 was opened in 2023. It commemorates those that were massacred or enslaved on this day, Saturday, the 6th of November, 1830. If you enjoyed this video, give that like button a smack. If you're new, consider subscribing. For this story, though, there's still plenty of meat on the bone. So join me for part 4. I look forward to your company then. But until then, hei kōna. Take it easy.